ahead and go grab you some. The elevate's in the, as we see the man right back there, Robson, he actually has the elevate in hand. If we run out of the elevate, I can go get more, but then the other one's out of Idaho, Lava Hot Springs. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually he owns the rights to the water, so that's just a nice that he offered to give it to us to keep us healthy tonight. Is everybody, I'm looking for Anita. It's okay. Okay, we're gonna start with a prayer and a pledge, and then I'll be doing some more introductions, okay? Anita, will you come up and say our prayer for tonight? Thank you so much.
Our Father in heaven, we humbly bow our heads before Thee and thank Thee for this beautiful night that we have together to learn about liberty and to celebrate liberty. We pray that Thy Spirit will be with us here as we learn more about how to protect and defend our country. We pray for those who are still traveling, that they may get here safely, and that we will be able to learn and grow closer to Thee. And this we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Yes.
Before you open the water, as you open the water, it's full all the way to the top. So
Next, we're going to do a
purpose of our inalienable rights. Without that, we cannot achieve our highest potential. And God really wanted us to be able to achieve the highest potential we can, even now, and to be prepared for the next life. After Christ returns, and we'll be all judged. And inalienable rights is an essence. There's no way that we can be judged if there is no inalienable rights. Anyways, I love America, and I love to be able to see President Trump being elected. And a lot of people are having some issues about it, even Republicans, people that believe and talking about things. But the main thing that I wanted to share is that we that elected President Trump, we need to support him. We need to write to him in support of the things. It's a major burden and in his shoulders right now. The whole world is against him and what he's doing. So that I have no doubt that the hand of God was the one that put Trump in the way of evil. And although he may not be perfect, we need to be able to help him to be perfect. And the only way that we can do that is writing support, pray for him, and listen to these people that are fighting, like Americans for Prosperity, you know, even the Kimber Academy, the Utah Liberty Council, which I'm part of it. And so it's really amazing that we are able to be living a miracle, because we were taking, this was like a war. Our own government had like just put us down for grabs. And we have been saved right now temporarily, but we need to be able to have the way that this can be permanent. So it's all up to the government of the people. And right now, it's not as many of government of the nation under God within the government of the people. When this nation started, most of the government of the people were the nation under God. Through the decades, we lost a lot of people of unbelief. But like, we are the ones that believe in God. We need to share the message of liberty and include Jesus Christ and be able to be a light to these people, the ones that have lost their faith, and the ones that have still their faith, to empower them to be able to be strong, to be able to do things in a way that's not would be condemned by the Savior. We need to do things with love, diplomacy, and be able to change people's opinion about liberty and about God. Yeah. So I want to say this message in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Already said about that, but like we're gonna pass something. We really do need some people to help us to maintain this, what we're doing. So donations, it's very appreciated, or as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimber Academy, for continuing to provide space for us to, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Okay, next we're going to introduce Jake Oakes. He runs Liberty United. He's the co-founder of Utah Liberty Council, vice chair of the National Independent American Party, and he's going to take a couple minutes. Since he invited so many of you here tonight, we'd like to invite him up on the stage for just a couple minutes, and then we'll have the main event. Come on, Jake, where are you? Did we lose him? Is Jake not here? Jake? Yeah, like a big old, that's okay. Is he talking? We can do it later maybe? Okay, all right, we'll let Jake talk after. Classes tonight, back to back, ready? The first one, How to Argue Freedom and Always Win, by the totally amazing man named Shane Krauser. Shane, Jake, you wanna get, you guys are killing me. You're ruining my groove. Jake Oakes, come on up. Wait. He chose cookies over freedom.
No, that's an object lesson. I'm not that fat. I got to drop a couple pounds, but I'm not. It's for an object lesson. But how you guys doing tonight? You guys excited to learn? Okay, so real quick, I think that what we need, we need to overcome and become. Let me start with a question. Is God a politician? Why or why not? I'm hearing a lot of no's. Why do you say no? Okay, so before we debate terms, do you think that maybe we should define the term? A politician is an expert in the science of governing. Does God govern? If God governs, would he not be an expert? I would put forward he's the ultimate expert. Now, Christians, do we have the goal to become Christ-like? Okay, so if God's a politician, meaning he governs, and we want to become God-like, Christ-like, is it not important to learn how to righteously govern ourselves, our families, and our community? So learning how to govern is not a temporal matter, it's an eternal law. In James chapter 1 and 2, James says that we will be judged by the perfect law of liberty. Liberty is a law. In Galatians 5:13, it says, you are called to liberty. Okay? I would say, let's overcome, but also become. Are freedom and liberty the same thing? Why?
Freedom, you can do whatever you want. Liberty, you do what God wants.
Okay, I like that. Good job. So freedom is your gift to be a free agent. You have the ability to choose. But just because you have the ability to be a free agent, does that mean you're empowered? Does that mean that you're automatically empowered just because you have freedom? So liberty is when you use your ability to choose your path, and you choose a path of making choices based on proper principles. You further empower yourself. So liberty is power. Who could use more empowerment in their lives? Hear, hear. Yeah. Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out. I need a quick volunteer. Okay. Who wants their refreshment early? Right here. Come on up. Give her a round of applause. She's gonna need it. All right. Grab that first cookie. Just take a bite. Yeah. What's wrong? It's salty. Okay, now grab the other one. Oh no. That's good. Okay. You can grab the rest of the good one if you want. Just kidding, I gave you the salty one. No. All right, go ahead and take a seat. Give her a round of applause for guinea pigging on that. All right, now, a lot of us can recognize a good cookie from a bad cookie. A lot of our neighbors, unfortunately, especially with our governor, cannot recognize a good cookie and a bad cookie. But just because you can taste the difference, does that mean you know how to make the cookies? Does that mean you know how to bake that cookie? What do you need in order to bake that cookie? You need the recipe. We have a formula. We have a formula for success. It's something we give a lot of worship and praise and lip service as conservatives, but do we actually, really, are we actually studying it beyond just giving it lip service? Do not tread on me. Ugh. Second Amendment. Ugh. We have lots of these feel-good platitudes, but do we know the core principles? It's not enough just to recognize tyranny. We want to actually build something. Let me point something out. The conservative movement today, it's mostly reactive. We spend all our energy calling out evil, which is important, but we're not producing good enough. Once you take something away, something is going to fill that void. And so we try to exert a lot of energy getting rid of negative or bad, and then something else bad just comes in and takes that void. We need to actually start producing good. Now, here's the truth. Most of us are still trapped into programmed thinking. The two-party system, the media, the matrix, it conditions us to react instead of reflect. We need to spend time looking in the mirror. That is how we empower ourselves and then others. Some of you will die Republican. I'll forgive you for that, staying into the two-party system. If you're curious, I could tell you about a platform that's much better, but more than party affiliation, what I'm most concerned about is our thinking, okay? Did you know how they trap monkeys? Anybody have a clue how they trap monkeys? How do they do it?
You make a monkey trap. You have a box that has a hole that their hand will fit through. They will grab onto a banana or whatever it is, and when they clench their fist and they pull back, they can't get it out. They won't let go of the banana so that they can get free.
Yeah, so you have some kind of containment, oftentimes something like a jar. It's big enough to put the hand in, and they go for the bait, some nuts or fruit. But then they make a fist grabbing it. They can't pull their hand out. There's nothing actually constraining them except themselves. They will not let go. They want that bait. They won't let go. They trap themselves. I would like us to expand our horizon on the way we think. With that, I want to conclude that when we study principles, it becomes a tool belt. I want to thank Lisa Cummins and Ron Mayo for helping organize this, and Liberty United came together to help sponsor. Give Ron a round of applause. With Liberty United, you'll see flyers on your chair for an upcoming event that we have in May. We have country singer Derek Johnson, also public speaker, expert in military law. This is a perfect opportunity to be a Liberty missionary, be a missionary for the cause. We put on a big fair with bounce houses, food trucks, live entertainment. It's like your summer fest that the city's put on, bringing them in with entertainment, but sneaking in some principled education with it. It's your perfect opportunity for your friends that may have common values, but they're just apolitical, they're complacent, they hate politics. This is a perfect way to kind of draw them in. Look at that flyer. And with Liberty United, I want to conclude on this quick thought. We believe principles are power. Policies change, trends shift, but principles, they're timeless. When you're well grounded in principles, you've got a tool belt. You can face any issue, even unforeseen, and be prepared with solutions to not only put out fires, but to build. We need good candidates. We need good legislation. Boy, do we need better courts. But how do we affect all of that? All of it. How do we affect all of it? There's so much to do. Everything is a reflection of the people. When we influence the hearts and minds of people, we create a domino effect. Let's become the thinkers, the builders, and the leaders of a new era of liberty. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jake. One of the things he said, you know, about principles. When we met Shane Krauser just last night, I have just enjoyed every second he's been at our home. I feel like an angel came into our basement. He's just so principled, and he has so many good values, and everything he teaches is from a principle base. So I'm really excited. I just want to, again, reiterate for those who came in late, we have 2 classes tonight. The first one is called How to Win Arguing Freedom and Win Every Time, okay? And the second one is called How to Monetize the Freedom Movement by Having a Consumer Rebellion. And both of them are amazing. They're totally different, but they're important. And I just want to add this little tidbit. If you don't know Shane Krauser, you're going to know him tonight. He's done great work with teaching liberty and constitutional principles all over America with Glenn Beck. He is the man who prosecuted Mike Tyson. He is the man who worked for one of the most conservative counties in the United States as a prosecutor for Maricopa County. And he is the man who is a father of 6, and he's a good man. And I just want to end with that. Thank you, Shane, for coming in and speaking to us tonight.
What was that?
The husband of Janelle.
Yeah, the better half is not here tonight. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. What a way to introduce me as the attorney. I mean, I know that's the first thing you were thinking about coming into this meeting is I want to hear from another attorney. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was my 5 minutes of fame. I had no idea that was going to be a part of my introduction. But that was quite an interesting case that I prosecuted back in the day when I was working for the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. I was there for 12 years and then transitioned out of that. I was a partner with a pretty big firm in Tempe, Arizona, and then had my big breakthrough. While I was prosecuting and practicing law in general, I was also out speaking to groups 3 to 5 nights a week. And many of you might remember the Tea Party movement. You're all in on the Tea Party movement? So I got a call one night. This was December of 2009. I received a call from one of the groups in Arizona that says, hey, you know, we hear you're rather conservative and you teach the Constitution at a public college. How can this possibly be? How did you get in and make your way so that you could teach these ideals? And I said, well, I've got my ways. Anyways, I was asked to go out and speak, and from that one night, it was just constant. I was out speaking, and primarily in Arizona, and then one night I'm out in Deer Valley. Does anybody know where Deer Valley is? There's an airport there. It's North Phoenix. And I arrived there, and 2 guys showed up in a suit. They were both in suits, and they were kind of out of place. Most of the people that were there were dressed like you are tonight. And so I shook their hand and got to know who they were a little bit. They just said, we heard about you. We are just coming to listen tonight. Well, afterwards, when we were done, they came up and told me the true story, which is, we're from Glenn Beck, and Glenn wants to meet you. When can you fly out? I'm on my way. Like, hell yeah, let's go do this. And it was an incredible journey. I toured with Glenn for almost 2 years, and many of you might remember Restoring Love in Dallas, Texas. Did anybody remember Restoring Love in Dallas, Texas, 2012? They did that at Dallas Stadium. Well, I came in for an entire week before that main event on Saturday, so it was Monday through Friday. And in Glenn Beck Studios, it was one of the most amazing memories for me. It was an incredible experience where for 5 days, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., it was just knockout, drag-out education on the principles of freedom and the Constitution. And those people walked out of there knowing more about the Constitution easily than 99% of the population. And I know what you're thinking. That's not a difficult feat to teach people something that, right, when it comes to the Constitution. Would you agree with me that most individuals in America don't understand the ins and outs of the Constitution? Would you agree with me on that? Would you agree with me that most elected officials, from Congress to governors to sheriffs to mayors and town and city councils, do not understand the ins and outs of the Constitution? Do you agree with me that they don't understand the principles of freedom? I think this is a big problem going on today, and I want to talk about tonight how we address that issue. And I believe that there are two battles going on in America today. One is a political battle, and one is a cultural battle. I happen to believe that the cultural battle is more important than the political one, because the cultural battle largely drives politics. Would you agree with me on this? That what you're seeing happening in politics today is a direct reflection of what's going on culturally. If you have individuals in the culture that don't understand the Constitution and its parameters and what it was designed to do, you will ultimately elect individuals that don't understand those things either. So when you look at individuals that have been elected, what's the barometer that we're using to determine whether we're going to vote for them? Well, I'll tell you a story. I was out in Washington, D.C. I was invited out by a congressman who asked me to work with all of the incoming freshmen. They had just been elected. They were all in the House of Representatives, and it was a fascinating experience. It was just supposed to be a 2 to 3 hour engagement with them to talk about checks and balances, separation of powers, the 10th Amendment, vertical checks and balances along with horizontal checks and balances, and what role do you play? And as I'm talking to them about this, they're looking at me like I've got 3 heads. They have no idea what I'm talking about. And wait a second, they had just taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, and they arrive in Washington, D.C., not understanding basic concepts around separation of powers and checks and balances. That when the president decides to do something outside of what he's permitted to do under Article 2, for example, right? Article 2 addresses the executive branch. What can a congressman do? Most of them have no idea. What do you do when the judicial branch, when the 9th Circuit, you all are in the 10th Circuit, I'm in the, we adore the 9th Circuit. No, we don't, right? The 9th Circuit is the most overturned circuit in the country. And so as members of Congress, what can you do with the judicial branch that's gone rogue? They have no idea. And yet we're sending these people to Washington, D.C. and hoping that America is going to be saved. Now, answer to that question is what? Congress has the power to establish the lower courts. And if they have the power to establish lower courts, so can they disestablish? So can they reassign? But most in D.C. don't even understand this. Think about mayors. I happen to believe that mayors are our last line of defense. Would you agree with me on this? When you think about mayors, I happen to think that these are some of the most important elected positions, is what's going on at the local level. They are our last line of defense. Think about what happened during COVID. If we have the time tonight, I want to dive deep into this. But think about what happened during COVID. The mayors are the last line of defense. When the governor is imposing their will in a way that violates the principles of freedom and is outside the rule of law, what is a mayor to do? Just follow the rules? Just follow whatever the governor says? If that were the case, why does a mayor take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution? They are to understand these ideals and be able to push back and resist. But I understand that you all had a mayor, for example, in Vineyard. Is this true? There was a mayor in Vineyard that said, Governor, we are not participating. You want to do this social distancing stuff? You want to require us to wear a mask? We are not participating. Do Do y'all remember what the governor did in response to that? Not a thing. Not a thing. You just needed people with courage to stand up and say, I know what the rule of law says. I know what it is like to live in a free society, and we're going to be free here in the city of Vineyard. That was the idea. So I just look at the culture and the political battle. I am not suggesting that we abandon politics. We should show up and vote. We should seek out candidates that understand these ideals. But we should also engage the culture in a way that is enlightening. Well, we are the ultimate safeguards of freedom. If we're thinking that there's going to be some political savior that's going to come and save the day, we are mistaken. In fact, I was talking to this young lady. Remind me of your name. What is it? Pam. 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 And we have a secret handshake, by the way. I just met her, and we have a secret handshake now. It's the Liberty Handshake. But she brought up an interesting quote as we were talking before we got started. Thomas Jefferson said that a society that wishes to remain ignorant and free, a society that wishes to be ignorant and free, wishes for something that never was and never will be. You cannot neglect the principles of freedom and think that you're going to have a free society. It's not the way that the world works. So here's what I want to do with the time that we have. I want to inspire you, and I want to show you a technique that I've been using in my life for 30 years. I taught at the collegiate level for over a decade. I've traveled the country debating college professors. I'll tell you about one of those experiences. And I've engaged my own family. I have 6 kids. My oldest is 29. My youngest is 15. What have I done with my kids? I want to show you some things that has the ability to transcend politics. And here's the good news. Anybody like Thanksgiving when all the family members come together? Yeah, I love that. But I bet some of the people that they're not excited about you showing up. Right? You're the Liberty Party. I'm all about freedom, and you're ready to go. Like, oh, here they come again. I'm going to tell you about a way where people are going to be so excited about you coming. You're going to be so excited about you coming. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Well, let me start by inspiring you a little bit. So as I mentioned, I have 6 kids, and we have taught our kids from a very young age that if you were born in America, you won the lottery. That very few people in the history of the world have ever experienced the type of freedom that we have experienced. Now, that's not to suggest that tyranny is not on our doorstep. It's more than on our doorstep. It's in our homes, right? You walk into your kitchen, and what do you see? You see your dishwasher, your oven, your microwave oven, your toaster, your blender, your refrigerator, and then you go into the bathroom, and you got the faucet and the shower head and the toilet, all regulated by the federal government. And we might think that's not a big deal. It is a big deal if you believe in the government following the rules. They're regulating in areas that they have no authority to regulate in. They're not just on our doorstep, they're inside our home. So with that said, one of the things that we've done with our kids every Christmas Eve for the last 20 years, we take them up north to an area called Payson. Anybody been to Payson, Arizona? Payson. I'm not talking about Payson, Utah. Payson, Arizona. And we're looking for snow. Now, some years we are not so lucky. We went last year, and it was approaching 70 degrees. We're looking for cold weather. We're looking for snow. We're looking for icy rivers. Last week, we really had to get last year, we had to get innovative. But what we do is we're looking for snow, and we're looking for opportunities to make our kids uncomfortable. And this is the story that we tell. Does anybody know what this is a depiction of? What is it? Yeah, Washington crossing the Delaware, one of my favorite stories. So remember, Washington is engaged, right? He's got his Continental Army. He has 25 individuals that are with him on December 25th, 1776. Now, mind you, months before, Washington had 25,000 troops. Only 1 in 10 had the courage to be with him on Christmas Day, 1776. And remember as well that Washington is not just winning battle after battle. He's engaging. This is a little bit too much. We didn't bargain for this. Retreat, reassess, re-engage. They're just really good at not losing. But this battle is different. They would cross the Delaware. They would capture 700 professional Hessians, and it would revitalize the legitimacy of the revolution. Suddenly, the talk along the Atlantic seaboard is maybe Washington's not so crazy. Maybe these guys can do something, because remember, it is not difficult to understand the doubt that many of the colonists had. It would be equivalent to Costa Rica today taking on America. That was what it was equivalent to. Taking on the greatest military at that time. And you got this little ragtag army? Who do you think you are, George Washington? And yet this battle was different. The feeling was different. And so we tell our kids that story, and then we're finding snow on December 24th. And when we find the snow, off with their shoes. Here's why. A third of George Washington's troops had no shoes. They had wrapped their feet in burlap. So listen, if the Continental Army, a third of them had to do it without shoes, you're taking off your darn shoes and socks. Let's go. Let's go. And let me show you some pictures of what that looked. You guys want to see this? Yeah. Can I show you this? Now I'm going to show you. So here, this was about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. We're in the water. Look at, this is my boy developing courage. The shoes are off. This is cold. Now I know by Utah standards, you might be like, you don't know what cold is. But this was cold right here. Again, I'm telling them the story, and we're going into the water. And now we're to the point where it's not just going into the water, we're swimming. We're going into the icy rivers when we can find them, and it's just incredible. Right here, bad angle of the camera. I'm like so excited because my kids have been running to the snow. I'm like, get in a line, we're taking pictures. I'm memorializing this moment. You can see my daughter. She's in the process of learning courage. Right there she is. Right, shoes are off. And then look at this one. Now, I have to tell you, this picture right here got me in a little bit of trouble. Do you see my son standing to the left of me? Yeah. He's got the red hoodie. That's Jacob. Jacob is not happy with me in this picture. Can you tell? He's staring me down, right? And can you look at me? Just look at me. I'm happy. I mean, I'm smiling ear to ear. I'm like, I'm raising my kids to be Liberty Warriors. Yeah, right, here we are. And my son figured out that something was going on that maybe they would have figured out after the picture was taken, but he knew what was going on during the picture. I'm standing on the rock while they're freezing their tails off in the river. I'm right here on the one. They're all freezing. And like, you hypocrite dad. Hey, I've already suffered. It's time for you to gather the courage up to be a Liberty Warrior like your dad. Right? This was so fun. And then let's see, this one, there you go. Evidence, or Exhibit A, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And then this one here, you can see as the years go on, my kids are getting more and more courageous. The shirts are coming off. Now, let me tell you what happened with this picture. This was actually icy. And again, this was about 3 years ago. And they get in the water, and it is uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. I'm getting in the water. All right, guys, let's go. Take the picture, and I'm back out. They go in. We take the picture. We get out, and we look at the camera. We got to do it again. Get back in. Right back in the water we go. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, these experiences have been some of the greatest experiences I've had as a father. Being able to sit with my kids and help them understand that they were created for such a time as this. That you were called to protect these ideals of liberty. You were called to help restore. And it's not going to be simple. It's going to take courage. And some of the conversations I've had with my kids have been so emotional. And I think I share this with you because we have to do more of this with our young people. We have to help not just tell them that America is exceptional. We have to do something more than just tell them freedom is a good thing. We have to do more than just tell them limited government is a better idea than unlimited government. They have to feel it in their bones. And for me, this has been such an incredible opportunity as I've been able to help my kids experience, maybe just for a brief moment, what it might have been like to be a member of the Continental Army as they became very uncomfortable, right? Standing in that water, ready to get out and move on. And so this is a big part of the culture battle. Can you turn the lights back on? I'm done with those slides there. So I didn't want any of you to go to sleep because I think Heather, I was talking to you. Heather, didn't you bring the Zip Fizz in? Yes. Yeah, this is a problem. Any of you who brought caffeine in, something to keep you awake, I'm a little bit offended. Here's why. Did you think you were going to fall asleep tonight? Come on. Oh my goodness. So listen, this is the cultural battle. And I am fond of the cultural battle. And I want to share with you something that I believe can help us win the cultural battle. And it's hard work. It's building relationships. It's connecting with people. And so let me take you on a little bit of a journey. And if you're taking notes, I'm going to give you 3 ideas, 3 questions that I hope you'll embrace as a part of your arsenal as you go about talking to people. And I'm going to tell you some amazing stories that will accompany what I'm going to share with you. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that I was going to share these 3 ideas, and those ideas were developed almost 30 years ago. I was in my early 20s, and just studying liberty, I just started to put some things together. I said, this works. This works. I've been using it for 30 years, and in the college classroom, for example, as I mentioned, I was there for over a decade. I taught constitutional law. I taught criminal law, criminal procedure, criminal justice. Constitutional law was my favorite. Now, I want to provide some context for you. Most of my students throughout the over a decade that I taught were Obama supporters. I didn't have to ask them. All I had to do was listen. And for me, I was not there to indoctrinate my students. I was there to challenge them on whatever ideals they brought to the classroom. And I will tell you this, most of my students, while I was teaching, had no idea what I stood for. Because I was challenging them, whatever position they would take, I was challenging them on their positions. Hey, I think everybody should have a gun. I'm challenging them. No, no one should have a gun. I'm challenging them. Here's what I found. When you sing the song of liberty, others will sing it with you. And so what happened in the classroom is on the first day, they would come marching in, and I would ask 3 questions right from the get-go. And these 3 questions I'd like you to write down and watch what happens when you start to use these things. And again, I'm going to share some fun stories. So imagine I've got 35 students in my classroom. They're going to spend 16 weeks with me. And I would ask the first question, who here wants to be left alone? Who here believes that they can live their life better than government can? That was the first question. Anybody with me? Who here believes that they can live their life better than government can?
Yes.
Yeah, does anybody want to be left alone?
Yes.
Do you know in almost 15 years, I never had one student not raise their hand. I want you to think about the power of that question. It has the ability to supersede politics. Here I am in a room full of people that if we were to take a poll right now, ideologically, they're on a different side of the aisle. Right? They're voting for individuals that are different than who I'm voting for. Yet I threw out a question that allow us to create common ground. And I'm going to show you how powerful this is. The second question I would ask is, who here believes that government should follow the rules? Is anybody with me on this? Do you believe government should follow the rules? Who said amen? Jake did. Do you know I never had one student in well over a decade that ever said, no, I disagree with you. In fact, I've never had one person come to me and say, no, I don't think government should have to follow the rules. Why? Because we understand this from the time that we're very young, that rules have to be followed. Dad, you're not doing what you told me to do. Mom, you're lying. Right? As kids, they do that all the time. Saying, listen, if you're going to tell us what the rules are, you have to follow them too. So we understand that from the time that we're very young. And then the third question, you're going to love this one. Who here believes that you should be able to keep what you earn? Anybody with me on this? Amen. Okay, so let me tell you, my students, they'd raise their hands and say, no, I believe you should be able to keep what you earn. Let me tell you, quick sidebar, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I was out at Columbia University, New York. Now, how do you go to a college, a university, under the threat of protest? I go out to Columbia University under the threat of protest. I'm the leave me alone guy. What's there to protest? I just leave me alone, and I think government should leave you alone as well. No, there's this crazy guy coming to talk. It was unbelievable. But 600 students show up in this auditorium, and I ask those 3 questions right from the get-go. Who here wants to be left alone? Every hand in that auditorium goes up. Who here believes government should follow the rules? Every hand goes up. Who here believes that you should be able to keep what you earn? Every hand goes up. And I say, is there anybody that disagrees? And 4 or 5 hands go up, no surprise at Columbia University. They go up and no, I don't believe you should be able to keep what you earn. And I had them stand up. And I said, listen, I know Columbia University is not cheap. I know you have money in the wallet, or you've got mommy's money somewhere plugged away in your wallet by way of a debit card or something like that. I know you've got computers. I know you have iPhones. I know you have all kinds of gadgets going on. Here's what I want to do. You 5 that are standing up, go ahead and bring those things up here, set them on the podium, and when we're done with this lecture, we will march together down to a pawn shop in New York, and we will pawn them off, and you and I will decide who is most worthy of that money. Go ahead. Now, how many of those students do you think took me up on that offer? Not one. Not one. Why? Because socialism's a cute idea until it pertains to your property. Right? So they were operating on this moral, some form of morality that says we should help other people, which I agree. But government force can never be charity. And so here we are. It was an incredible experience. Now, how has this worked? So I'll give you an example. I was up in Montana debating a professor. They asked me to come up, and we had 4 categories that we debated. One was the right to bear arms. We disagreed drastically on the right to bear arms. We then debated the Constitution as a living, breathing document. He took the position that it's living and breathing, and I took the position that it's static. And there were a couple other issues that we debated, which I'll share in a moment. These students came to listen to this debate. Now, I don't have a following up in Montana like he does. We're going to this is his playground. And so we show up, and we have this debate that lasts almost 2 hours. And my common theme was this: I just want to be left alone. So we're debating these various concepts, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to be left alone. I believe government should follow the rules. And of course, we would dive deep into the various issues. Here's what happened after the debate. I had students coming up after me and said, well, that's my professor, but I'm actually with you. I just want to be left alone. Yeah, I believe government should follow the rules. They shouldn't be able to make them up as we go along. And so we saw this interesting transition going on as I was traveling and speaking with these students who had this unbelievable wake-up call. They thought that they believed certain ideas, and then I would go in and sing the Song of Liberty, and they'd line up and say, I'm singing the song with you. I actually agree with you. And so I look at my own college classroom, and here's what would happen. In my constitutional law course, we would go through the parameters of the 7 articles of the Constitution, understanding limited government, what is government permitted to do, and then we'd start to march through the 27 amendments. So we'd get to something like the Second Amendment. And I would march into class. We're going to spend 6 hours on the Second Amendment. And I would march into class and say, ladies and gentlemen, today we're hitting on the Second Amendment, and here's what I'm here to tell you. We better get serious about what's going on in our country with regard to firearms. We need to stop these shootings. All of our kids, they're sitting ducks. Individuals out there sitting ducks, and these thugs are out there accessing firearms and hurting individuals that these thugs think they're entitled to injure for some reason. We need to ban guns. Now, what do you think my students did? Yeah, I agree. I'm in with you. And I come over here and say, let me tell you guys why that's a stupid idea. Let me tell you why it's stupid. You know what happens historically when governments ban guns? People die. You don't go into the Serengeti and dehorn all of the gazelles and think that the cheetahs will disappear. Are you following me? Can you imagine, hey, listen, these cheetahs are such predators. Here's how we're going to get the cheetahs to stop preying on the gazelles. We're going to gather up all the gazelles. We're going to dehorn them. And when we dehorn them, the cheetahs will stop being so mean. You follow? It's just so silly. We would never do something like that. You don't disarm good people and think that bad people are going to go away. So what did my students do? Well, I agree with Krauser over here. Let me tell you something. Why you just don't? And we'd go back and forth. And what would happen was over the course of that debate, the students were gravitating over to this idea that individuals should be armed. A well-armed society is a polite society. And yet when they came into class, they had these warped ideas about the role of government. They had these really weird ideas about what liberty means. And we would spend 16 weeks together. And here's what happened. They went from believing in the idea that bigger government is better than smaller government, and less freedom is a better idea than more. Like, it was a total reversal. More freedom is a better idea than less freedom. Less government's a better idea than more government. And they went from an advocate for certain politicians to, this is no word of a lie, to finding out when the next Ron Paul rally was. This is what happened. It was unbelievable. 80 to 90% of my students are coming in and saying, this is what I believe. Right? I'm all about Obama. It's the hope and change. I said, that's fine. That's fine. You get to decide where you stand, but we're going to challenge you on some ideas. And to watch over the course of 16 weeks where they would come up and say, hey, Ron Paul is doing this campaign for liberty on campus. I'm excited about it. And we're trying to figure out when's the next rally going to happen. It was unbelievable just by getting them to think from a different perspective. And so I would have students, one of the greatest things that happened while I was teaching was I would have students waiting outside after class. So I was practicing law by day. I'd generally get in around 7 a.m., practice till about 6 p.m., and then I was off to the college to start class at 7, and I'd end at 10, and hardly ever did I ever exit the parking lot before midnight. Hardly ever. I'd have my students waiting out there, and they say, Mr. Krauser, what do you believe on the issue that we talked about today? Where do you stand on firearms? I said, where do you stand? He says, well, the principles of liberty tell me that a safer society is a well-armed society. I said, well, that's what I believe. I believe the founders got it right. And I literally had grown men and women break down crying in the parking lot at 11 o'clock at night, saying this, I've been duped. Why have I never heard these ideas before? Why have I never heard them before? I've only heard one idea, that it's government's job to take care of us. It's government's job to be safe. And of course, my students would hear things like this. Thomas Jefferson said, as a society, we get to choose dangerous freedom or peaceful slavery. Dangerous freedom or peaceful slavery. You and I get to choose. I will always choose dangerous freedom. Right? You want peaceful slavery, they can put you in a box and tell you what to do, and they'll feed you. And all. I'm not interested in that. It's dangerous freedom. And so, thank you. So I want to show you how this would work in the classroom. So we're debating the First Amendment. Free speech, free assembly, free press, the right of the people to petition the government for redress. And we get into the First Amendment, free speech. And one of the issues that we would always debate is flag burning. Is burning the flag protected speech? And so I'd have a student, they'd stand up and he'd make his argument and I'd challenge him a little bit, and another student would get up and challenge him, and next thing you know, you've got quite an interesting discussion going on. And then I get to stop them and say, Joe, hold on. Joe, I need you to stand up. And Joe would stand up and I say, Joe, hold on. Do you remember on the first day of class I asked you a question? Yeah, sir, you asked several questions. I asked you whether or not you wanted to be left alone. Do you remember me asking that question, Joe? Yes, sir. What did you say to that? Sir, I said that I want to be left alone. I said, so you agree with me that you should be able to decide how you live your life? Yes, sir, that's what I believe. Sir, I asked you a second question. I asked you whether or not government should have to follow the rules. Joe, what did you say to that? Well, I said government should have to follow the rules. Joe, here's what I want you to explain to the rest of the class. Why are you, if you believe those ideas, why are you now taking a position that revolves around you telling everybody else how to live their lives and is a gross deviation from the rule book that government's supposed to follow, namely the Constitution? Go ahead and explain to the class. What happened? I'm going to change my position, Mr. Krauser. That's what would happen, because here's what was going on. They had never been forced, and for lack of a better term, they had never been forced to analyze the issues of the day through the lens of leave me alone. They had never been compelled or enticed or motivated to analyze any given issue through the idea of government should follow the rules. And we saw this incredible transformation with a couple thousand students during my career. And then I take it to the debate stage. And I watched students that thought I was the crazy guy walking in, lining up after the debate saying, I agree with you. Because it wasn't political necessarily, it was based on principles and ideals. So I'm in a grocery store. Do you all have Winco here? Yes. Are you guys big fans of Winco? Yes. Here's the problem. I live right around, I could throw a rock and just about hit Winco from my house. It's a problem because they're open 24 hours a day. So it's not uncommon to find me at 2 a.m. down at the Winco buying dried mangoes. You know what I'm talking about? The big barrels? Dried mangoes with maybe a little candy in there at 2 a.m. Yes. Mangoes? Don't tell my wife that. Yes. So listen to this. I'm back there. Now, this didn't happen at 2 a.m. I had done a Liberty event out in Arizona, and afterwards, a bunch of us, we were going back to my house, and we stop at Winco. And we're back by the meat section. And there's a guy wearing, I know you're not going to believe this, he's wearing a Joe Biden hat. Now, do you all know where you get a Joe Biden hat? I don't know where you get one of these things. Now, you got to understand, Gilbert's a rather liberty-oriented, conservative area. I'm like, he's wearing a Joe Biden hat. Yeah, and so anyways, I approach him, just striking up conversation. Hey, you from here? Yeah, I'm from here. How long you been here? Well, I'm not really from here, but I moved here, but I kind of consider myself from here. Been here for 20 years. Kids, grandkids, what are you doing now? And then I said, what about the Joe Biden? He's like, yeah, I'm a big believer in Joe Biden. And I said this. I said, I just want to be left alone. What do you think he said? Me too. Me too. Dude, listen, my friend, there's meetings going on that you need to come to that I'm involved with that are all about liberty. And it's just a bunch of people that want to be left alone. Really? Yeah. You need to come. Okay. So we got these Democrats coming to hang out with us because they want to be left alone. See, I'm telling you guys, it is incredible. So when you go to Thanksgiving, you're now the leave me alone guy or gal. Everybody agrees with leave me alone. Those are some fun conversations. When you start, see, this is powerful. So here I am out in Arizona, and I speak quite often to various Republican clubs and some of the precincts throughout the state. And my big message has been, I'm a registered Republican, but my allegiance is not to the party. Amen. My allegiance is to the principles that drive the party. It says thank you. It says, the platform says, we are the party of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I'm all about that. And if an R wants to get on board with that, I'm in. But if an R wants to deviate from those concepts and principles, I'm not in. See, that applies to President Biden and President Trump. It's holding them accountable to these ideals. We don't give one side a pass and the other side we're going to hold the line. Either we believe in freedom and we believe in the principles of the Constitution, or we don't. And so this document is worth defending. These principles are worth defending. I'll tell you a story. By the way, those 3 questions, I hope you will try them. Yeah. Give it a shot. I'm telling you, they're fail-proof. They work. And I'll never stop using them just because they've been so effective. It's allowed me to create friends across the aisle. It's allowed me to build alliances. In fact, I have a friend, he's a black gentleman, 35 years old. His name is Blaine McCullough. Big guy, about 350 pounds. He was invited to a meeting where I was speaking out in Mesa, Arizona. He shows up because someone had invited him to come and said, hey, Krauser, he does some speaking. You might be able to get in with him. He might do some filming for you. Or you might be able to do some filming for him. So you need to come. So he comes and he's there filming. And I just exchanged pleasantries with him, just shaking hands. And about the 4th meeting he comes to, he says, man, we got to talk. We got to talk. He says, it's making me mad what you're talking about. I said, why? He says, I'm a registered Democrat. I said, okay, and? He says, I was poor. I was born in California, and I'm black, and I was told I was supposed to be a Democrat. But here I come listening to you, and you keep saying I want to be left alone, and I want to be left alone, and you're creating all this cognitive dissonance for me. Because the Constitution, he called it my people, that was always an instrument of pain. And here you are talking about this is the greatest political document ever penned by man, and it's not making sense to me, but you keep talking about leave me alone, and you're juxtaposing that to the Constitution. It's making me mad. And so we created this relationship. And one night, we're meeting at this place called Bahama Bucks. It's a Hawaiian ice type deal. And we sit down, he says, Shane, I got you. He says, I'm buying everything you're saying, but I got you. You say this Constitution's amazing? So listen, the 3/5 clause. Y'all know the 3/5 clause? In Article 1, the 3/5 clause says, for apportionment purposes, determining how many representatives you get, we're going to count individuals, but if it's a slave, we're going to count them as 3/5 of a person. It has nothing to do with the value of the individual. It has everything to do with representation. And he says, Shane, they were attributing value to my people. I said, no, they weren't. I said, this was a brilliant strategy by the northern states. He says, a brilliant strategy? I said, yes. Essentially, the northern states said, southern states, if you want more representation in the House of Representatives, free your slaves. And no, this is what Blaine does. He gets up off the table at Bahama Bucks. He walks around the restaurant. Quit talking truth to me, Shane. Quit talking truth. Yeah, and now he's got this shirt that says 3/5 on it. 3/5. And on the back it says the Constitution is not the problem, it's emphatically the answer. He just changed, right before the last election, changed his affiliation from Democrat to Republican, and it was the first time he ever voted Republican this last time around. All through this idea of just, I want to be left alone. I believe government should follow the rules. And so I think about, how are we doing on time? Oh, good, okay. We'll stay another 3 hours. I got some things to share. Okay, so, but I was mentioning that this Constitution is not an outdated document. And this is one thing that Blaine had started to buy into, that the Constitution was old, outdated, archaic, and evil. And he's hearing me talk about it from the perspective that it's relevant today. And we're doing it in a way that what he was not familiar with. All he'd ever heard was it was a document that allowed for slavery. And I would ask him, can you tell me where in the document it allows for this? Oh, well, women were never able to vote. Well, can you show me in the document where it says women can't vote? Oh, it's not in there? No, it's not in there. That was being done by the states. The U.S. Constitution never stopped women from voting. The states were making their own rules. It would be the reason why the 19th Amendment would eventually come around. Well, black people couldn't vote. Really? Where does it say that? You mean it doesn't say that? Nope. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says black people can't vote. What? And it was just this massive awakening, and now he's on the speaking tour out in Arizona where all these different conservative, liberty-loving groups are asking him to come speak. It's an unbelievable transformation just by asking that one question, do you want to be left alone? So back to this idea of the Constitution being relevant today. We need to defend this document. It's worth defending, and it's rather easy to defend. So I was a radio talk show host for about 3 years. And all I did with my show that was kind of unique was I would analyze the issues of the day through the lens of the Constitution. It was amazing. I had so much fun. And I have a guy call in. I'd been doing my show for, 5 or 6 months. And he calls in, he says, Krauser. And I said, that's Mr. Krauser to you. No, I didn't say that. He calls in, he says, Krauser, listen, I've been listening to your show, and I got to tell you, thanks for taking my call. But you got to move on, man. Like, this is getting old. Like, every issue you just talk about the rule of law, the Constitution, the principles of freedom. He said the document's old, outdated, archaic. And in some ways, it's even evil. You need to move on. The rest of America's moving on, Shane. What are you doing hanging out with a document that's 250 years old? And my first thought was probably your thought. Why are you listening to my show? Why are you, like, there's all these other shows, but here he came back, and we had a very interesting discussion, if you want to call it that. He goes on his little rampage, and I said, sir, can you tell me where in the Constitution this document's outdated? Where is it archaic? Where are the evil components that are relevant today that you're so concerned about? I said, are you talking about the 14th Amendment? You know, the 14th Amendment says equal protection under the law. The government doesn't get to pick winners and losers. Are you telling me that that's outdated? Should we go back in time where the government gets to pick winners and losers? Or are you referring to the 13th Amendment? The 13th Amendment says no involuntary servitude. Slavery. Should we go back? Is that outdated? Or is it the 15th Amendment? The 15th Amendment says you can't stop a person from voting based on their race. Sir, is that outdated? What about the 19th Amendment? You can't stop a person from voting based on their gender. Sir, is that outdated? All right, maybe what you're talking about is the 5th and 6th Amendment. When the government mounts its resources against an individual, accusing them of a crime, they have to follow certain rules. Fair trial, speedy trial, public trial, the right to confront the government's witnesses, the right to bring in your own witnesses to testify on your behalf, the right to counsel. Sir, are those outdated ideas? Are you telling me that government has become so noble and trustworthy that they no longer have to follow those rules? What are you talking about? Well, maybe you mean the 4th Amendment. The 4th Amendment, by the way, is my favorite. Leave me alone. You know what I'm talking about? Leave me. It's all about search and seizure. You're going to come into my house, my car, my pockets, my computer, my phone. You better follow certain rules. Sir, is that outdated? Should we just give them free access to those things? Or maybe what you mean is the 8th Amendment. The 8th Amendment says when the government secures a conviction, they cannot treat that criminal population, that incarcerated population, in a way that's deemed cruel and unusual. Are you telling me that's outdated? Should we go back to barbaric times? Okay, maybe what you mean, I hear a yes. Who are you? Okay, don't screw up my argument here. And then, is it the 2nd Amendment? The 2nd Amendment says this: no man or woman should be a victim, and no man or woman should be a subject. And an individual can use force to make sure neither one of those things happen. Are you telling me that that idea is outdated? Or maybe you mean the First Amendment, freedom of speech, assembly, religion, press, petition. Are those outdated ideas? Okay, you've got to be referring then to the 7 articles. The 7 articles limit government. It tells the government what they can do. And the government can only do those things that we've given it authority to do. Are you telling me that those ideals are outdated? Sir, you came onto my program and I gave you all the time that you wanted, and here you were making an argument to me and all my listeners that it's old, outdated, archaic, and evil. Go. What do you think his response was? Dial tone. It was a dial tone. Right? Here's the idea. These ideas are worth defending. And they can be defended, and we need to be aggressive in the way that we defend these ideals. So when I talk, thank you. So when I'm talking about how to argue freedom and win every time, I've actually put together a 4 to 8 hour course on how to do that. It was a part of what I did out in Las Colinas, Texas with Glenn Beck for that week-long event. It was teaching them how to argue these ideals. And it was teaching people to do it not in a way that was divisive. It was finding common ground by leave me alone. I wasn't out there arguing with someone on the other side about election integrity, although I believe it's important. That wasn't the entry point for the discussion. I wasn't out there discussing with my political opponents immigration. That wasn't the entry point to the discussion, although I believe immigration needs to be addressed. That wasn't the entry point. I wasn't interested in winning an argument. I was interested in finding allies. And I believe that's key to our movement of bringing about more freedom and less government. It's actually figuring out how to cross that party line. In fact, people often ask me, what book should I read? I said, well, you should read my books. Well, what? Yeah. But there's one book that I think every liberty advocate should read. Every liberty advocate. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to do this. If you really want to get good at creating allies, it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's what it should be. And that's kind of how I made my living for the last 25 years in terms of moving these ideals. It's just creating relationships and understanding not everybody's going to agree with me. But a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And it's creating those connections. So with that said, I wish I had more time. But I want to, who said me too? All right, give me a high five. Thank you. Thank you. I got some fans over here. But listen, I do have I'm really sad because I think my book's about sold out. I don't know if there's any more books. I do have 2 up here still. But I've written actually 3 books, and I brought 2 of them. One book is called Your Nation to Save, and it's a line-by-line explanation of the Constitution. Let me tell you about this book. So when I was touring with Glenn, I had just finished this book right before I began. And went to Dallas Stadium, and I sold thousands of these copies. And 2 months later, someone took a signed copy and sold it on Amazon for $3,200. And I was mad. I was mad. I didn't get a piece of it. Come on. No, that's a true story, and I often kid about it, but man, it's free market principles. I love the free market. So anyways, it's a line-by-line explanation of the Constitution. And the second book I wrote is called What is Freedom? Is it for you? The book starts out with the 3 questions. Do you want to be left alone? Do you believe government should follow the rules? And do you believe you should be able to keep what you earn? And then I go through 25 ideas that will change the way you see America. And I'm talking about how do you advocate for these ideals. Now, if we sell out, you can go on. I can give you a website to jump on, and you can order those, and we'll have those shipped out tomorrow if you're interested. But I don't know how many we have left up there. What's that?
There's only 1 of each left.
2 of each left now.
All right.
Yes. All right. So with that said, I want to share one final thought. 2 final thoughts. Number 1 is, I believe we have to have more individuals involved in the freedom movement, not just showing up at elections every 2 or 4 years. We've got to do something to get people more engaged. The side that believes in big government and less freedom, they have full-time freedom advocates. They're out there on the front lines. I retired 10 years ago. I was 43 years old, and I retired. Walked away from it all. And took a bit of a risk. But the second half of this, those of you that are going to stick around, there's going to be a discussion around a marketplace solution. How do we monetize the freedom movement? We're going to talk about that. And my wife and I got involved in this whole monetizing the freedom movement about 10 years ago. And it's been incredible. Allowed us to walk away. It freed up our time, allowed me to write some books and just travel the country and just be an advocate to be a voice with the people. That's what this is about. So if you stick around, that's what that's going to be, a marketplace solution. And number two, I want to inspire you as we close out this first half. I told you about what I did with my kids. And it was a reflection of what happened on December 25th, 1776. You know what we don't talk about often is what happened a week later. December 31st, 1776. New Year's Eve. You all remember that their commission was up. The Continental Army, they could go home. And Washington stands up and begs for them to stay. Washington finally has momentum as a result of crossing the Delaware and capturing these 700 professional Hessians. There's finally momentum. And he begs and pleads for them to stay. And upon his initial request, how many of them agreed? Not one. Not one. Imagine being in Washington's position at that point. If he doesn't have soldiers that stay with him, it's done. Our effort to win and fight against these tyrannical policies being imposed by Britain, it's a done deal. Where do we go from here? We've written the Declaration of Independence. We're in the process of wanting to solidify those ideals here before too long. Right? Remember, the Declaration of Independence has only been in place for 6 months come New Year's Eve of 1776. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator. Not endowed by government, not endowed by a piece of paper, not endowed by what the majority might say. I am a free man. Yes. You are free men and women. And they adopt this philosophy that had never been adopted. There are several things that happened in the adoption of not just the Declaration, but soon to be the Constitution. Things that had never been done in the history of the world. Think about this. September 17th, 1787. What was going on September 16th, 1787? For thousands of years, individuals have been ruled by czars, kings, emperors, thugs. That's all people have ever known. And 56 men signed the Declaration. 39 men signed the Constitution. They say, this is not supposed to be the status of men and women. We're supposed to be free. And so they put this Declaration of Independence together, not to talk about the status of the day, but to talk about the ideal we're chasing. This is where we're supposed to go. And for 200 and some odd years, it's been a constant spiral upward towards more freedom and not entirely less government. Government's growing bigger. But it has been an upward spiral towards individuals understanding what it means to be free. And so going back to that New Year's Eve, 1776, Washington rides off for a time and he comes back. And what I'm about to share with you is something I read at the age of 13. I'm a first-generation American. My mother immigrated here from Switzerland in 1949. And I grew up around these ideals. She gave me a book when I was 13 years old called An Enemy Hath Done This by Ezra Taft Benson. I read that book at the age of 13, sitting in my bedroom in Mesa, Arizona. And I knew why I was placed on this earth. I knew for certainty. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know where God was going to take me. All I knew was that liberty is a God thing. That's all I knew. That agency is a God thing, and that fighting for liberty today is a worthy cause, and I was supposed to be involved in fighting for it. And so I start to study, and then I come across what Washington did on New Year's Eve, 1776. He comes back after a time, and he's in front of his troops, and he says this. I want you to imagine that you were there. My brave fellows, you've done all that I've asked you to do, and more than reasonably can be expected. You've worn yourself out with hardships, and we know not how to spare you. But your country is at stake. Your wives, your houses, and all that you hold dear. If you will agree to stay but 1 month longer, you will render a service to the cause of liberty that you could likely never do under any other circumstance. And one by one, those soldiers stand forward and said, we'll fight. And I imagine those words being spoken on that New Year's Eve. But I believe those words are more important today than they were on New Year's Eve, 1776. That we'll engage and that we're going to fight and that we're going to step up. Now, you know, one of the most common questions I get at a venue like this is as follows. Shane, what should I do? Like, I want to be involved. I listen to some of the messaging that you're talking about, and I feel a little bit of hope, and I feel a little bit of inspiration. What should I do? I don't know. All I know is that you and I are the hands and feet of liberty. That's what I do know. And it's a matter of digging deep. Prayer, figuring it out. What am I called to do? It might be organizing events like this. It might be running for office if you want to sell your soul. It might be running for office, right? It might be working for a political candidate. It might be pushing paper in some way. It might be bringing treats to events, right? It might be working I don't know what it is. But all I know is us working together, we can do something special. Yeah. Let me put this in perspective. Never in the history of the world, never in the history of the world has a country experienced this level of tyranny and reversed course short of a violent revolution. Never. But I believe in miracles, and I believe we still have tools available to us. And if I had more time, I'd tell you what some of those tools, but understand we still have tools available to us, things like the 10th Amendment, that will allow us to engage at a high level and reverse course. We're seeing some of this go on right now. We're seeing some of this happen right now as we speak. But we need you and I, warriors, to step up, advance these principles, and be strong, and inspire others to come join us. And as we do that, I believe our best days are ahead. Thank you so much for having me. We're going to keep going. Where is Amy? Amy, get up here. Are you just giving me more time? Ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to know. Ladies and gentlemen, here to give it up for Amy, one of the hosts of the event tonight.
So, you guys, isn't he amazing? Yeah, he got to sleep in my basement last night, and he slept in this morning. I was like, I want to get him up. I want to get him up. I literally was like worried, like if I let him, I don't want to wake him up, but I really want to talk to him again. So it was just really great to have him stay with us. It was amazing. Thank you for letting that happen. Tonight, we are going to take just a 5-minute potty break. 5, because we started late, and we don't want to be out here till midnight, right? It's a work night. And I appreciate and I respect your time. So we're letting everybody go get a drink, go potty, and then 5 minutes later, we're going to bring him back up here. You want to see him again? And we're going to also bring up Rob Robson, and we're going to be talking about a way to monetize this. And I'll give you a little hint. You're never going to pay swipe fees again with your debit card or your Visa when you're checking out anywhere. And I'm going to just give you 5 minutes and hurry back to your seats, okay? Wiggle, 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 stretch it out. I don't want anybody getting inside. Taught Shane Krauser how to get free. Did I say that? He helped him to retire early so he could go out and live his passion. And that helps all of us, because what he was called to do was to teach us how to be free and a God-like people and to worship him. And so anything that funds your dream and your purpose is important. Many of us spend our entire life chasing the almighty dollar. I'm just going to say that. But it isn't what we should worship. We should worship our purpose and what God put us on earth to do. Do you agree? Okay. Shane, you're so darling, but you're going to miss your intro here. Yes, okay. Rob, would you like to just say anything before we get started? No. I tell you something so funny. Yesterday, somebody asked him, "What's your dream?" And he said,
"This is my dream right here."
And then he handed me back the mic, and I was like, he's just afraid of talking in the mic. That's what it really is. He ain't that romantic. All right. Again, I'm going to welcome back Shane. I just want to start with saying this. We learned how to do what Shane and Rob are going to teach you tonight. We learned about this 26 days ago, okay? And our life has absolutely changed in 26 days. Absolutely. It's been the most incredible information anybody's ever given me. We learned about, was it on like March 24th, 26th, something like that? Yeah. In just the first 4 days, we saved $160. And that was the beginning of me going, oh my gosh, I can't shut up about this. So I'm going to end with that. Shane, come on up here and wow them with how you did it. Mister, come on. Take good notes.
Thank you, Rob. So we're going to move over to a different PowerPoint here. And listen, I'm just going to take a few minutes and we're going to bring Rob up. I met Rob about 12 years ago. He was speaking at a lot of Liberty gatherings down in Arizona, and we were crossing paths. And next thing I know, we're sitting in my office at home, and we were having these deep conversations about, man, how do we change the world? How do we impact the culture? How do we get people to buy into this idea of freedom and get serious about it? Is any of you familiar with Dr. Walter Williams, the famed economist? So he's a fascinating story. He was actually a Marxist and going to college, and you all know Thomas Sowell? Thomas Sowell, like they began to work together. They became mentees of Milton Friedman. So they go to school and they come out Marxist, and now they would eventually become some of the foremost liberty advocates in America, let alone the rest of the world. And here was their transition. They said, we finally got a job. We got a job. We came all about freedom. Like they recognized that the stuff being taught in the classroom was not a reflection of what was going on in the real world. So anyways, Rob and I were having these incredible conversations about how do we impact the culture. And one of the things that really resonated with me is how do we monetize the freedom movement? How do we monetize this? Literally pay people to get involved in helping become advocates on the front lines, chasing dreams and goals, and doing those sorts of things. And so I started working with Rob about 10 years ago on a project, and long story short, it allowed me to retire 10 years ago. Walked away, full-time freedom advocate, loving people, working with people, traveling with people, and it's just been an amazing, amazing journey to talk about a marketplace solution that we've ultimately decided to run with. But let me just tell you briefly about my story here. So I mentioned that went to law school. I did my undergraduate work at Arizona State. Any Sun Devil fans? Good. All right. One. That's not the most important question. I then went to law school at I want to be clear on something. Capital T, capital H, capital E. The University of Utah. Is everybody on board? Nobody. Some people aren't on board? Guys, now listen, I know you're going to want to argue with me, but you don't have the microphone. Too bad. Listen, I've been up, when I was living in Salt Lake going to school, we lived down on 33rd South and 9th East, Sugar House. And we'd go up and visit this place, I think it's called This Is the Place. You know what I'm talking about? It's like on 33rd East and like 6th South, 4th South. So I went up there. You know, it kind of memorializes the pioneers coming in, and they overlooked the valley, and they said, this is the place. You need to go there, because you can't see Provo from there. You can't see Provo. You can, like right there, you can see where the University of Utah would eventually be established. This is the place. All right, now I'm making all kinds of enemies. You want to fight me? You want to fight? I'm teasing. It is a fun rivalry, and I had just such a great experience, really, at the U. But as soon as I was done, I came back to Phoenix and began my work as a prosecutor. I was there for 12 years. I spent about half of my career in the gang homicide unit, chasing down really bad people. And we had some really interesting experiences along the way, my family and I, especially when I was in the gang unit. And there were many things that I enjoyed, but what I didn't enjoy was I was getting up every morning before my kids were awake, and I was getting home 6 nights a week after they were in bed. So here I am practicing law, and I'm going out to college, and I'm teaching multiple nights a week, and then I was teaching at the police academy on the weekends. I taught at the Phoenix Police Academy and the Glendale Police Academy. And they had me coming out on the weekends teaching a variety of different things, courtroom presentation and interrogation. Those were my two primary subjects that I taught at the police academy. And I loved much of what I was doing, but I didn't enjoy it at the expense of my family. In fact, my oldest child today is 29 years old, and it's been tough because he never knew his dad. That is the reality. He never knew his dad. So from the time he's born, I'm in law school. And I'm at school 60 hours a week. And then when I go to work, I'm working 60 plus hours a week, and here I have my oldest boy growing up, and he never sees his dad. And so for me, I was in a crisis. Here I am struggling in my relationship with my oldest boy, wanting to fix it, knowing I only get one shot at life. I only got one shot at this relationship, and so I was in a crisis. That's the reality. And I remember I would come home at night and watching my kids in bed. And there were so many nights, especially when my daughter was born. She's the last one. 5 boys, girl on the tail end. And I would come in and watch my little girl, and I would just cry. Big, tough guy in the courtroom, and big old baby as I'd walk into the room and just cry. And I was looking for a way out. That was the reality, is I was looking for a way out. I had all these goals and dreams. Wanted to take my kids out of school and educate them on the streets of the world. I wanted to be involved in church and charity. But most of all, aside from my family, I wanted to be involved in the liberty movement. I didn't want to just show up every 2 or 4 years at the ballot box and say I did my job. And I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to leave a massive impact. I wanted to do what Benjamin Franklin had done. Benjamin Franklin figured some things out at the age of 40 and spent the next 40 years doing what he felt like he was called to do. And today, over 200 years later, we're still talking about his legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the way I wanted to live. I wanted to live my life in unique and unusual ways. I was 13 years old, and I mentioned a story previously about some of the things I read. Let me tell you about something else I read, the Reader's Digest. My parents subscribed to the Reader's Digest, and they put it in the bathroom. So while you were taking care of business, you were reading Reader's Digest. And I came across something that stuck with me at the age of 13, the top 10 deathbed regrets. And number 1 was, I wish I had been true to my purpose. That was number 1. And that always stuck with me. And it always drove me to the point where I was just uncomfortable. And so I look here at where most people are at. There's where they're at financially. There's where they want to go, but there's a financial system. Who is concerned, for example, about the Federal Reserve? I'm very concerned about the Federal Reserve, that it is an instrument to keep people down. When you control the money supply, you control the issues. When you control the money supply, it's easy to control the people. And so what we're talking about here tonight, that Rob's going to spend most of the time talking about, is a way out. And this is what my wife and I chose. I hope you see value in what my wife and I have chose, because number 1, it got us free, but it also aligned with the purpose of liberty, right? The whole idea of economic freedom, a marketplace solution. And I hope you see value in what you see here today. So